I went down to the subway. The time was about 11. As usual, there was a lot of work at work on Friday, which is why I came home so late. Very tired, I entered the last carriage, paying no attention to anyone. I sat down on an empty seat and screwed the headphones to almost full volume and closed my eyes. It was good to go along one branch, touch to the very end. Apparently, I dozed off and I woke up from the silence. You know when the train stops. Suddenly there is such an unusual silence in the car. I opened my eyes and looked around. Damn. Thought it really taking to the depot. I was the only one in the car. But when I looked into the outer car and calmed down, a company was sitting very and discussing something cheerful. The train accelerated to its usual speed and I finally calmed down. But when a song passed, followed by another, I knew that we had a long transfer between stations on the line. But it was only 2.5 minutes. But soon lasted at least 3, and the train kept moving at the same speed. I went to the glass between the cars and looked at the company from the front car. But we looked calm. Something about them seemed strange to me. There were 3 of them, 2 girls and a guy. One of the girls was sitting with her back to me, facing the others. Suddenly, I realized what I was confused. This girl, sitting with her back, moved her hand rhythmically. Every 15 seconds, she raised and twisted her hand, explaining something and lowered it again, like a wound mechanism, to the nearest seconds. When I noticed it was some pattern in a guy, he nodded his head with the same frequency. I knocked on them, but were as usual, and did with some action at regular intervals.
I like trains.
Came a voice from behind. I was struck by the cold. I overpowering myself, turned around. Near one of the doors stood a boy, about 6 years old, and looked out the window. "Who are you?" I barely squeezed out, being absolutely sure what a minute ago, where there was no one in the car.
Alexei.
He introduced himself seriously, looking at me with green eyes. When we turned to the window, it stared in fascination. "Why are you alone? Where are your parents?" asked the question.
My parents left without me.
He sighed.
My mother was crying, but we couldn't take me away, probably because I did.
He sighed again. I did not have time to realize what he said as the boy continued. "The station is coming soon, and I was still right." He looked at me and smiled.
I really liked to ride the subway and the train to my grandmother.
Suddenly I wake up sitting in a crowded carriage. I got up giving way to some lady, and all the way home it stood looking at the people crowded around me. When I got home, I powered myself some hot tea and surfed the internet. I spent a silent hour entering requests for the name of the station, how near the station, until finally one of the news feed I found a mention of a desert boy ride in the subway train car. On the hall between station and on the side of the article was the pictures of a boy. Yes, Alexei looked at me from the monitor screen. Since when I have not been able to fall asleep in the subway, and driving along the stretch between was a station, I always remember a boy with green eyes, who loves to ride trains. After waking up with a jolt, the girl laid in bed a few seconds longer, reaching over to switch on her bedside lamp. She tried to remember exactly what had stolen her sweet slumber away. When she called on the brunettes swing her legs over the side of the bed and heaved herself up, checking the time on her phone, She snorted when she saw it was midnight were watching her, knowing what sleep would only await her. She left her bedroom for the kitchen, a good cup of coffee her mind. As she passed by her front door, a chill spread like liquid fire down her spine. It's only winter, she told herself, focusing again on the coffee plan. Measuring out scoops water and preparing her cupcake her a cuphead. But as the dog liquid boiled, she had nothing left to keep her mind from wandering off. The chill returned, and she couldn't help but glance behind her to the front door. It stood very innocently unarched, just like always. The deadbolt was still in place and she could see nothing amiss with it. Turning back to her coffee, she did her best to forget about the feeling. With her cup in hand, she started back towards her bedroom. As she walked by the front door, he did say what a quick glance out of a peephole vault helped calm her restless mind. The chill worsened with each step she took towards the door, and forced her away from the safety and warmth of her blankets. She pressed her empty hand against the cold metal door and took a deep breath before leading her ear to the peephole. At first, she could only see an inky blackness and somehow seemed to swirl in itself. When she blinked in surprise, the void melted away. She wished it hadn't in its place, where it stood what she called only Quest was once a man. The limbs were long and inhumanly awkward, with bulky joints branching off into several arms. Not unlike the branches of a tree, the creature was dragging in a black side, somehow making the thing more nightmarish to hear. The icing on the proverbial cake. However, was that pasted, as the hellish thing's face. It was a touch her mind blurred the ghastly visage, to spare itself for her snug and horror. She shoved herself away from the door, with the hand still pressed against it. The scalding mug of coffee filled the liquid burning her bare legs, the liquid burning her bare legs as she fell backwards, and tried to crawl away from the door. She knew somehow where her mind hadn't been playing tricks on her. As she walked away from the door, she watched as tendrils as black as the void. She first saw snaky around throat the cracks. The girl was trapped between the instinctive and the gut feeling. Do not turn her back on the door. When the door jolted, we argued to flee, overcame her, and she slipped in the burning liquid as she tried to make it back to her room. She knew deep down what she was trapping herself in a corner, but she had to get away from the door. The girl was halfway down the hallway when she heard the previously locked door creak open. She screamed and slipped into a well, cracking her chin on it and stunning her, afterward where it was only blackness. Nicole? A warm male voice snapped the woman out of a trance. As she turned around, she was met by one of her sister's doctors. She nodded, not sure if she should say anything, or even if she could find her voice if she did have something to say. That morning she had gotten an urgent phone call from this hospital, saying with her sister. Lindsay was wary, before we had even let her see her. The doctors had pulled her off to the side and insisted what we talk to her about what might have happened. Phrases like self-inflicted and assault had been thrown around, and Nicole left him unreal. She still hadn't fully understood what we had been. She still hadn't fully understood what we had been saying until she saw Lindsay with her own eyes. Her little sister had a bandage wrapped around her head, covering both of her ears, as well as her ears. We said it was to keep her now dead in its eyes from drying out and to try to keep infection out of the wounds Lindsay had made to her ears. The doctors had greased wet at her, she or someone else had jammed a pencil into them to keep her off balance or to defend herself against something. Where was the mix of first and second degree burns on her hands, legs and feet, from what was a summit to be the coffee. An egg was found. Sleeped all over, vanished to her. To baby coffee here, night was found. Sleeped all over, vanished to her apartment. As Nicole walked into her sister's hospital room the first time, she thought she had speed with silhouette of a man in the window. What she knew was impossible. Her sister's room was only tried story of a hospital.